Hey, on this show, we talk a lot about how we want to reimagine education, even within a traditional system, so that we create a campus experience that's worth showing up for. So today I'm joined with Jeremy Qualls, and he runs this amazing entrepreneurship and innovation center in the Nashville area, and he's here to talk about what he does. Now, that's the second half of the podcast, and it's literally living out the Do School Different vision that I have for education. So you want to check out the second half. But in the first half, Jeremy drops a masterclass in terms of overcoming ego and mistakes we make as leaders, and also why it's so important to figure out like what's going on with students, right? There's that metaphorical glacier, and we don't see what's under the surface. But with just a little bit of work, we understand what motivates kids, what challenges they're going through. We all got stuff going on, but when you can connect on that human, personal level, it changes everything on a campus. And so you'll want to listen to both halves for sure. Hey, if this is your first time watching or listening, thanks for pressing play. I'm Danny Bauer, and this is Better Leaders, Better Schools, the original Ruckus cast for innovative, visionary, and rebels in education. Again, reimagining the system, even when it's traditional, so that we create a campus experience worth showing up for. Thanks to ruckus makers just like you. This show ranks in the top 1% of all shows worldwide, and we'll be right back with the main content after we get in a few short messages from our sponsors. Looking to create the kind of campus experience students never forget? ODP Business Solutions transforms ordinary spaces into extraordinary learning environments. Visit odpbusiness.com/education and let's do school different. That's odpbusiness.com/education. Education is broken, but you're here to fix it. Get the only leadership newsletter designed for rebels, innovators, and ruckus makers. Our paid Substack gives you tools to disrupt the system, not reproduce what doesn't work. When you subscribe, you'll read each week the Reframe, mindset shifts in 90 seconds or less, .ai, which are supercharged AI prompts and custom GPTs, the Mediocre Educators Hub, where the onion meets education and what could go wrong there, and First in Line, exclusive content, all our best stuff before it hits the bookshelf, and more. And for listeners of this Ruckus cast, we have a very special offer. When you go to ruckusmakers.media/awesome, you'll get 50% off your first year annual subscription to the Ruckus Maker Substack. So go to ruckusmakers.media/awesome to get started today. If you could differentiate instruction in 20 minutes or less, would you do it for all your students? Well, you can with IXL. Over 1 million teachers use IXL because it empowers them to use effective data-informed instruction. And you can get started today at ixl.com/leaders. That's ixl.com/leaders. All right. And Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Danny, I'm so happy to be here. It's from one pirate to another. Let's
right.
make a difference today.
I'm really looking forward to this conversation. You're doing some really interesting work. We're going to get to what you're doing at the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Center. But prior to that, I just want to go back a little bit and ask you how a coaching experience transformed your leadership philosophy.
Man, that's a great question. When I think about that, I go back to my early days of being a young principal at the middle school level. And I remember we had some fires we were putting out one day, and somebody's like, "Why are you so calm?" And I was like, well, when you have to take 16, 17, 18-year-old boys that are hard-headed, make them all feel like they are the best player in the world to get wins, to put food on your table, that's stress. This is Sunday school. So it's literally being able to be flexible, try to bring out the best of people when you're coaching, and in the heat of the moment, you have to be able to make decisions and stick by those decisions. So I think that when you have that athletic background, specifically with coaching, there are a lot of failures. and you have to learn from those failures and what not to do. So I think that all is applicable when you go into leadership roles, regardless if it's education or not.
Yeah, right on. And I think in the pre-interview, you told me about a story. Maybe the student athlete's name was Nick, and he really taught you a humbling lesson. So are you okay with sharing that story?
Yeah, I'd love to. My first coaching gig, I was 22 years old when I got the head coaching job. I didn't need to get it. I didn't deserve to get it, but I got it. And the reason was I didn't do my homework. I just wanted to be a head coach. And there was a
Mm,
reason why nobody applied to get that job, and I got it because we were not very good. But it taught me some lessons along the way. But during that 5-year span at that first stop, I always kind of passed the buck along to the players, that the players didn't know what they were doing. I knew what I was doing. I was,
mm,
I was super smart, right? I knew that it wasn't the coach's fault, it was the kid's fault. Fast forward to my second stop, there's two types of coaches, those that have been fired and those that are going to be fired. So I tried to beat the second one of being fired and left and went to a new school. And I thought, well, this will be good because I can get better players. And I know it's not me, but I went in with the same mentality until I met Nick. And Nick was one of our players that was one of the smartest players I've ever coached. IQ was off the charts, knew everybody's positions, knew every play. But Nick was always mad a lot, and he wasn't the
mm,
best athlete on the floor. So his playing time was not as high as he thought it should be. And one day we were in practice, and I was riding him pretty hard. And he'd had all he could take, and he took his jersey off and threw it at me and said a few choice words and left. And I was like, good. Now we can all have a better practice and not have to tiptoe on eggshells around Nick and whether he's going to explode. So Nick pretty much just quit, just self quit, walked off the floor and done. So the next day, didn't even think nothing about it. That's just kind of the state of mind I was in. I was pretty self centered. And the next day, the guidance counselor called me and said, hey, you need to come up here. I was like, well, if this has anything to do with Nick, I'm out. Nick quit the team. Nick let us down. Nick made that choice. I didn't. And she said, Jeremy, get up here. So I go up there and I sit down beside Nick, and Nick is sitting there and he's looking at the floor and he says, Coach, you don't have to take me back. You don't need to take me back. I don't deserve to be back, but I want you to know one thing. I live 100 yards outside of school, and I don't know. I've never gotten my dad to come to an athletic contest. He's an alcoholic. My mother, who knows where she is? I don't even know what I'm going to eat tonight. And I just wanted you to know where all my anger was from because you never asked. Now, at that point in time in my life, I don't know that I've ever had that much of a humbling experience. Even playing college basketball, as humbling as that is, as a professional, the last thing you want to do is hurt anybody. And you're in
mm,
a role specifically as a coach that could quite possibly be one of the most impactful positions to young men and women too there is. And I had been derelict in my duty. It was malpractice, quite honestly. And Nick said, he said, I just wanted you to know, and I couldn't crawl under the desk fast enough. So I said, I tell you what we'll do. You play a sport in the spring and in the fall. Let me know you can be a good teammate. Clean slate, you're back. So he goes out and he runs track. Now, remind you, he's not the best athlete, not the fastest. He goes out and runs track. He's a great track kid, great teammate, great cheerleader for his teammates. Then he goes out and plays football. Hadn't done that all his whole high school year. Then he's a senior now. I asked the football coach, I said, how's Nick doing? He goes, he is the absolute best pickup we've ever had. I said, well, he's not even playing. He goes, he is our scout team quarterback. He knows everybody's plays, and he whips these young freshmen into shape when it's time, and he owns that responsibility. And I'm
mm,
sitting there going, holy smokes, what a great job that is. So here he comes to us, and he gets with us, and he's got a total different mindset. And he still may not get to play as much as he probably should have, but I'm playing him. He's getting to do his thing, and I'm kind of watching him closely. Is he going to revert back to the old Nick, or is he going to stay the same? Fast forward to a game that we played a team called Jackson Southside, which our school had not beaten in 8 years. And with 0.3 seconds left, the ball goes out of bounds under our goal. I call timeout. With 0.3, you cannot catch and shoot. You have to have an alley-oop style play, catch in the air and release. So I call our assistant coaches out. We're kind of talking over, and my assistant coach, Terry Clement, said, okay, we've got a decision. I said, there's no decision. We're going to run triangle. He said, no. You're either going to shut up and let this happen, or you're going to go in there and you're going to blow it up. And I'll turn around, and Nick had checked himself into the game, Danny. Checked himself
mm,
in the game. And he's over there and he's coaching the kids. And I looked at my assistant, Terry, and he goes, just let it go. So I walk over there and I hear him. He's saying everything we had said to each other as an assistant coach. He said, all right, we're going to run triangle. And Deshaun, you're the only left-handed player. The play's got to go left. I'm going to do. And I said, you've got to sell. He said, Coach, you've got us prepared. He said, I'm going to sell the fake. And I said, let's go. So we get it up. And I'm going to try not to get emotional because I do it every time of this story. Go over, the referee hands the ball. And I missed the most important part. I said, who's going to throw the pass in? He said, who do you think's going to throw the pass in?
Yeah.
I am, Coach.
Right.
So referee hands him the ball. Kid's on the right side. I need the kid guarding him to be on the left. That's what we were talking about, sell the fake. Nick gets the ball, and he looks and throws this fake, and sure enough, the kid jumps. And then he throws that lob. Our kid goes up, gets it, bottom of the net, game over, we win. Everybody goes and mobs Deshaun, who hit the shot. And I go straight to Nick, and I'm crying like a baby, and I'm like, thank you for giving me another chance. And he goes, no, thank you for believing me. Since that time, Danny, I moved away 100 miles back towards Middle Tennessee. That's West Tennessee. He's Uncle Nick in my house to my kids. He's watched my kids grow up, go to T-ball games. One of the most honorable things that I could ever be a part of. He had me come and be a part of his wedding. He's a first-gen associate's degree guy out of his family, military, career in the military. And if I would have continued being a hard-headed, egotistical know-it-all, we would not have it. We wouldn't be, first off, I wouldn't be on this podcast with you, but the story of Nick would have happened. And from that moment on, I was 30 years old. I have lived by the decree that the kids are owed more than what we give them in public education. And there's more to it than sitting in rows with 5 by 5. There's more to it than sitting up there and lecturing and handing out worksheets. It's reaching the kids where they are, doing everything necessary in your power and your team's power to give opportunities to kids so that they can succeed. That is our job. And that doesn't mean worksheets and homework.
Right. Did you take that mindset then? I know a little later in your career, you took over a Title I school that was on the state takeover list, which you'll talk about another potential job that might not have had a lot of applicants. I don't know, but that seems like a challenging situation. But yeah, what was your strategy in turning around that campus?
Well, it's funny that you say that. There was quite a few applicants actually, in the director of schools, when he walks me into the group, I'm the second youngest in the room, and I had 5 teachers that had me as a teacher. I had them as a teacher, and he goes, "Well, we had a lot of applicants, and here we are. Here's Jeremy." Like I was the only one left. Like everybody quit, but here he is.
Yeah.
So anyway, when I went
Last
into that,
one standing.
yeah, I was the last one standing. We went into that, and I asked him the question, "What do you want to change? What's the first thing you want to change?" And everybody kept saying discipline and all these other things. There's a lot of inconsistency, so we did. But the first thing I told him was a non-negotiable was relationships. Relationships come before anything. When you send a kid to me for disciplinary reasons, it's completely off your plate. So that means if I hear them from a disciplinary standpoint and I deem that it is a cultural problem in your classroom and not really a disciplinary problem, I'm going to send them back, and you can't get mad. That's the end of it. But what I did realize too is I went back and I allowed the teachers to help design the rules. And we had a handbook that was a mile long. And I was like, forget that. We're going to have 3 rules. What are they? Be responsible, be respectful, and be ready. Now, under that rules, if we had 1,000. Okay, so we had 420 kids and a staff of 40. 420 kids, 6th through 8th grade, state list for takeover. They had 4 straight consecutive years of negative growth. And we had been appointed a person from the State Department sitting in the office trying to guide me, a first-year principal, of getting us off the list. And he said, what's your plans? I said, my plans are to get rid of you by Christmas. And he kind of laughed, and I meant it, but he didn't realize what we were about to do. So 1,000 discipline referrals in year 1. 4 years later, when I walked out of there, we had 52 referrals. And I'll tell you what happened. Once we had an established disciplinary, positive culture, disciplinary system, we started digging deep on individual relationships. And if Danny was a student in my class and I didn't really like Danny, I wasn't going to poke the bear. Danny liked somebody on the hallway, and I was going to realize who Danny had a relationship with, and I was going to send Danny to that safety valve. And that was kind of the first easy lift that we started doing. And then we just started doing these little odds and ends and things that I would come across and crazy shoot from the hip ideas that easily, if we didn't have success in the first year, it would have fell flat. But year one, we cut the disciplinaries in half down to 500. Growth was a level 5. So we went from a level 1 school to a level 5 school, top 15% in growth in the entire state of Tennessee.
Yeah.
Year two, cut that in half disciplinary wise, stayed as a 5, and the trend went on. So it was just a paradigm shift in their minds of, number one, let's get rid of frivolous work. If a kid has a 95 in your classroom and they're failing the state assessment, there's something off. We're either grading stuff that is irrelevant or we're not making ends meet. So we then went through the educational audit of looking at our homework, looking at of things that we were giving them. Like, I can never forget, I had a science teacher come to me and he was, here we go, disciplinary issue. The kid didn't do his homework. What'd they do? Well, we had 42 definitions. Oh, what good is that going to do the kid if we're doing 42 definitions? So we really did a full-scale audit of everything and started winning those teachers over, one at a time. And the next thing you know, it was like, it would not surprise you in a week that somebody would have an unbelievable story that everybody would be crying and cheerleading about. And that's when it gets fun. It is when you know that your staff and the people around you have the best interests of the kids at heart and will do whatever's necessary, regardless if I'm a 40-year teacher or a first-year teacher.
Yes, those right educators, on the team, building that winning culture, simplifying discipline, from Encyclopedia Britannica to 3 rules, right? And just being it really crystal clear in communication. And, I want to double click on the idea of relationships, right? Because, here's another version. We all have nicks, and every student deserves an adult that cares about them on campus. If they lack that, they're never going to thrive there, right? And sometimes there's personality clashes, whatever, but you got to find that caring adult. And I relate to what you're saying because I was a middle school teacher, one campus called Franklin Middle, and Mike would be brought to me whenever he was like blowing up, right? And he was somebody in and out of the assistant principal's office all the time, suspended. He had a lot of challenges, but then the light bulb went off with the administration that Mike never had a problem with Mr. Bauer in 6th grade, so he's in 8th grade now. He's big. And some teachers might even be afraid, students afraid, when he's going to blow up. And he'd get all riled up and they would just drop him in my class with 6th graders. But like you said, safety valve. He was fine. He didn't have to go home. I had him sit down. This is a kid, I'd pick him up to bring him to school, right? We had that kind of relationship with this. He was living with his grandma and his sister. I'd drive them to school. We would go to the library to do homework, but sometimes that's what it takes, and you're not getting paid extra. I was younger. I was single. I could invest my time like that into a kid, but it paid off, right? It paid off for Mike, at least middle school, high school, that kind of thing. So yeah, I really appreciate, what you're sharing there.
I remember there was a kid named Alex. It's one of my favorite stories. So we were doing positive behavior discipline rallies. I mean, that's not a new concept. That's been around forever. Sure. At that point in time, it was kind of a new concept 15 years ago. And we had a kid, Alex, that we never could get him to participate, kind of sat in the back. Skateboarding kid, you got to figure 15 years ago, dark clothes, dark hair. We just couldn't get him to do much of what we wanted to. And the way I did our positive behavior rallies, I literally watched America's Got Talent.
Okay.
And if there was an interesting act that I really liked that got put off the show, I just did a web search until I finally found a number. In those days, it was not easy to find. Right. And I'd call them up. Well, Mountain Dew Extreme Team was one of those groups that did skateboarding half pipes and bike half pipes. I literally went out. We didn't have a ton of money. Obviously, we're a very poor rural area in Middle Tennessee. Got a sponsor. Said, hey, I'm going to call this group. May cost $500 to $1,000. They're like, we'll do it. Called them, and they said, you're in luck. We're coming to Memphis to do the Memphis Grizzlies halftime show. We'll come. We're about 2.5 hours from Memphis. I said, what's the cost? They gave it to him. I said, book it. Now, Alex had not qualified to go to this positive behavior rally. So I told all the teachers in the 8th grade hall, which is closest to the gym, and he was 8th grade at the time, I said, I want you to keep your doors open. When we send everybody down there and those that have to stay behind, I want you to leave your doors open. I want them to hear the screaming, the commotion carrying on. So we get them set up, people in there, they're doing backflips on this thing. People, those kids are going nuts. So I walk down and I get Alex. I put my arm around him. I said, I want you to walk with me. And I walk down there And I took him to the gym and I stood at the door and I let him watch for about 2 minutes. And his eyes were so big, he was like, I can't believe this is down here. I said, why do you think I brought this group in? He goes, I don't know. I said, because I don't want you to miss another one. He never missed another one. Not only did he not miss another one, he came out of his shell. He started having conversations with our teachers. And what I didn't realize at that time too, you got to remember, Nick came before this. So I needed to find the source of his anger. He had a morbidly obese mother that could not leave the house. He had a 20-something-year-old brother that lived upstairs that never would leave his room. And he was solely responsible in 8th grade in the middle school area. I'd see him walking down the road, going to get groceries and feed himself. Now, why would I participate in school? What does school mean to me? I've got to survive. So when we found those things out, and then I saw that Mountain Dew Extreme team, that's when it clicked to me. I said, okay, here's my chance at Alex. And when I'm telling you, it cost $1,000, a lot of manpower and for one kid. And we never thought twice about it. That's what we wanted to do because one kid could, it's our jobs. So once we got him past that, he's now married, has his own little small engine shop, doing his thing, living, being a productive citizen. Every time I see him, big smile on the face comes over. And that's been a difference maker in education. And how many times can we get caught up, Danny, in being a puppy mill of just sending kids through? I'm not going to spend the time on that. I don't. Number one, our partnership, as we call it, I don't hire people like that. We don't hire people that are asking about contractual hours. There's no such thing. Now, we do obviously respect each other's personal time and family time. Don't get me wrong, but there are no such thing as contractual hours.
Right. Yeah. They're asking the wrong question. They're missing the bigger picture of what you're trying to accomplish. And I think I really appreciate your stories because they're vulnerable. They're honest where you made mistakes, but they illustrate the importance of knowing kids. What are they going through? We can't see below the surface, but everybody's got a story and, challenges and stuff like that. And what are kids' interests and hobbies, the 42 definitions, of a student. And again, in the discipline, because it's boring. It's useless work. I was in Nairobi, Kenya. I spoke to 1,000 school leaders from around the world, not this past summer, the summer before that. And there was a student panel. I was a closing keynote, so I did my talk after the student panel. And there was this young girl, I think her name was Faith, from Nairobi. And it just blew my mind because she was using AI, right, in school. But she said to the crowd of principals, if I understood the purpose of why the teacher's asking me to do this thing, I wouldn't use AI. And I was like, oh my gosh, right? Like, because for too often it's busy work. Like there's no point, light up a kid's mind with a challenge and something they're passionate about. And they're not looking for shortcuts. They're looking for ways to dive in and invest more of their time. But too often it's easy for a teacher, hey, define these terms. Like, you know what I mean? It's just, there's such a disconnect in that. So yeah, I appreciate, what you've been sharing so far.
So there's two things I saw, reading an article yesterday, as a matter of fact, that goes back to your point. They polled a bunch of students and they said, what do you want to do for a living? So obviously, like the number one thing is be some type of influencer, YouTube channel, whatever. But the most interesting thing is, two things that stuck out to me is, number one, entrepreneurship and working for themselves. So when you start
100%.
thinking about this AI culture coming, we are fooling ourselves, honestly, as educators, if we don't embrace and figure out how to develop, not necessarily develop, but the thought processes with AI in tow. Tennessee just passed legislation this year. Screen time decrease, no cell phones in the school, back to pencil and paper. I'm like, how many times have you picked up a pencil and paper in your profession in the last 5 years? How many times have we picked up our phones and typed in something to AI so that we could sound a whole lot smarter and better and more efficient in practices? So I'm like, we're trying to go back in time in public ed if we're not careful on screen time. I feel like we're, specifically with my role now of driving innovation, how can we go away from that? You have to include those things so kids can figure out. It's not that people are going to lose their jobs to AI. They're going to lose their jobs to people that know how to use AI. And I feel like we're taking steps backwards if we're not careful in education to go back in time. And, somebody asked me the other day, so what's the difference from, 1950s schoolhouse to today in education? I said, well, the buildings got bigger. That's about it.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I believe
They
that.
might
I
have
mean,
air
it's
conditioning now.
right, right. There's one thing I want to go back to just for a second, if you'll let me indulge me, please.
Of course.
The biggest thing off that Alex story that we had, I think that really broke everybody, even those that were thinking this is a fluke. Jeremy's tying on to some fad in a book that he wrote. This is going to come back my way at some point in time.
Hmm.
I went and got butcher paper. In every teacher lounge across the country, there's the butcher paper that you pull out.
Mhm.
I went into the cafeteria and I lined the cafeteria tables with butcher paper. And I wrote every single teacher's name down. And I went classroom to classroom and I said, hey, go get you a Coke and popcorn. I'm going to take your kids for a minute. And I took every classroom down there and I told the kids, here's the rules. If you closed the door today and you had one teacher to close the door with and spill your guts that you absolutely respect more than anybody outside of your parents, I want you to put your name under their name.
Mhm.
Well, I was trying to prove a point to a particular teacher, but what I did not, yeah, right, all for one. What I did not account for was the adverse effect. So, Miss Smith, if you will, I knew Miss Smith was going to have a long list, but the teacher beside her may not have been. But what I didn't account for was, let's use Alex as an example. Alex put his name under the teacher that only had one or two names. And what happened was when I dismissed everybody and I cut it up and I kind of folded them up, we had a meeting that afternoon. I handed everybody and I said, now keep it closed. And I kind of gave them the parameters of what we did. I said, I want you to open up. These kids believe in you. Alex was probably hated is a strong word, was the most disliked student by the teacher that he wrote his name under. Now, I want you to think about that. The adult doesn't like you, Danny, right? And you went in and put your name under that teacher's name. And the teacher looked around and we had people just weeping. I can remember it vividly. And a teacher looked at me and said, I had no idea. I said, now you understand what I'm trying to get you to see. You are the best in some of these kids' lives that they'll ever have. Mom and daddy they're not leaving the good ones at home.
Yeah.
I said, these kids are trusting you. So it really changed the paradigm shift of those that, man, I really hate Danny too. Now all of a sudden this teacher's bending over backwards for Danny. Now all of a
Yeah.
sudden there's teachers being flexible. That was a really, really watershed moment for us and for me too in the career because I never expected to have that much power. I was trying to prove a point to a hard-headed teacher, then it really had a total holistic effect for the whole school. That was like unbelievable. And even he said, hey, if you've got problems with Danny, send them to me. I've got it. And I'm like, I never could have expected that.
Right. Well, hey, Jeremy, I'm really enjoying our conversation. This is a good spot to get some messages in from our sponsors. And when we come back, I really want to dig into your work at the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Center.
Okay.
ODP Business Solutions, formerly Office Depot Business Solutions Division, has been a trusted partner for schools for 30 years. At ODP Business Solutions, we're by your side to meet your evolving education needs. Now, picture this: a learning environment so engaging students forget to check their phones. Sounds impossible? That's exactly what we helped Belago Academy create. Their secret? Working with ODP Business Solutions to build collaborative spaces that actually work. We didn't just deliver furniture, we delivered a completely new way of learning. From tech integration that makes lessons come alive, to flexible spaces that adapt to any teaching style, to sustainable solutions that reduce your carbon footprint. We're here to help you do school different. And the best part, you get it all from a single supplier. All to help you simplify ordering and streamline budgeting while staying compliant with easy access to cooperative contracts. However you want to advance, ODP Business Solutions has 30 years of experience helping districts like yours get ahead. Visit odpbusiness.com/education to learn more. That's odpbusiness.com/education. Traditional professional development is broken. Districts spend $18 billion a year on leadership development that most principals find disconnected, unhelpful, and honestly forgotten by next Monday. The Ruckus Maker Mastermind flips the model. Instead of top-down lectures, we give you weekly coaching, peer-to-peer mentorship, and we help you solve your number one challenge every single week, starting the week that you join. We don't teach from a manual, something that reproduces the past, an old, broken, and traditional system. No, we teach you to innovate. We teach you leadership. We teach you how to do school different. You can apply now and join the only leadership community built for ruckus makers. And this application takes 3 minutes to complete. Go to betterleadersbetterschools.com/apply and supercharge your leadership this year within the mastermind. That's betterleadersbetterschools.com/apply. As a school leader, time is your greatest resource, and there is a real sense of urgency when it comes to getting students what they need right now. That's why I love IXL's Universal Screener. In 20 minutes or less, you can identify students in need of intervention. And IXL's Learning Adaptive platform makes differentiating instruction easy. As students learn, IXL adjusts to the right level of difficulty for each individual student. Get started today at ixl.com/leaders. That's ixl.com/leaders. All right, and we're back with Jeremy Qualls. He's running a really interesting Entrepreneurship and Innovation Center program. It really was blowing my mind when we were talking during the pre-interview, which is why, Jeremy's on the show. We talk a lot about ruckus makers doing school different, and that whole point of view is making shifts from old and broken and traditional ways of educating, the 42 definitions, so to speak, to new, different, and creative ways. And here you have this beautiful center. I know the Innovation Center is getting built. It'll be live, fall of 2026, but you all are doing some really cool stuff. So can you talk a bit about that program and what you hope to accomplish there?
Love to. Thank you for the opportunity. I've been in athletics. I've been a principal. I've been an athletic director. That's how I actually got to Williamson County. Williamson County is a little suburb, not little anymore, a suburb of Nashville, right south. We have about 42,000 students, very high ACT score area. Our kids do very well. And so I got to Williamson County. I was tapped to be the district athletic director, which was, at that time, my most favorite job I've ever had. I mean, I was over 300 coaches, 23 athletic directors, and 10,000 student athletes until I got this job. My superintendent at the time, Mike Looney, pushed me out of my comfort zone. He came to me and said, "I want you to run this entrepreneurship center." I was like, "Why would I give up what I'm doing?" I was like, I'm in my element. This is my sandbox. He goes, "You need to get out of your comfort zone because everybody thinks you're an athletics guy and you've got more to offer." And I was like, wow, he pushed me. I mean, I can't say thank you enough for that thought process and his confidence in me. So I took it reluctantly, funny at first, and got in it. So what it is a 15,000 square foot facility. It's open concept. We've got, white dry erase board tables, moving seats. It's got a big Shark Tank area with a Jumbotron. It doesn't look like school. It doesn't smell like school. There is nothing that, if you walked into it today, you would not even know it is a school. So we have an application interview process to even get in the space. We have 10 high schools, and all those 10 high schools send kids to this place, and we have 280 students. It opened up in year one with 70 kids. We have 280 with a wait list of 500 to even get in. In year one, we have four teachers. We call them facilitators. We've got a coffee store, coffee shop. We've got kids getting DoorDash. We don't care. We treat them like adults when they get there. So when they get there in year one, we do a project that kind of determines whether or not they want to work with certain people or not. They kind of formulate their own teams. And then they start to ideate. What do you want to create here? Is it a service? Is it a nonprofit? Is it a product? So once they kind of decide, they literally build out a business plan in year one. They know customer personas, they know SWOT analysis, they know cost of goods, they do research, market research analysis, they do all of that. They build that out. And then they problem solve, and that's where their product usually comes from. Year two, they have an opportunity. We have a fabrication lab there that has pretty much any tool known to man that they can create a prototype. And then they have the opportunity to pitch in our Shark Tank event. We subscribe to a curriculum called Incubator EDU out of Chicago. And the reason we do so is the curriculum's great, number one, but number two, if you're in that ecosystem and you make it to their top 5, you get to go to Chicago to pitch for $25,000 for the national championship. So that was very interesting for us. In the first 3 years, we'd make it to the top 10, not make it to the top 5, not make it top 10. So 2 years ago, an educational tech product was created at the center called Markify. This is a shameless plug, markifyapp.com. Please go check it out. If you're an educator, listen to this. It's one of the greatest whiteboarding collaborative tools that you can use if you're a one-to-one district.
I got to pause you there real quick too, because I was so excited for you to come on the show because I connected with the founder on X, and it's at Markify Tool if you want to follow him. But we were chatting. I see him building in public, and I love entrepreneurship, and I'm into something that's called category design. So I love talking business. I love talking marketing. And so anyways, I see him doing his thing, and then we get connected, and he started at your school. So I just wanted to put a pin there. Yeah, check him out on X at Markify Tool.
So to go along with ruckus makers, he is one, right? Because he's sitting in a high-end math class at Brentwood High School, and his teacher's on a whiteboard, and they've got all their Chromebooks out, and he's going so fast and erasing that Anthony's quite honestly, he just quit. He said, I can't keep up.
Right.
And he started looking around the room. He's like, why don't we just stream this in real time so that I can go at my own speed, and I can, if he calls on me to do a problem, I can do it at my desk, which he can see in real time, and vice versa. 22,000 lines of code later, Markify is born at the EIC, and we send him to Chicago. He wins our local Shark Tank. I think he wins we have all of our Shark Tank dollars are privately funded, so it's just donations. So we have roughly $10,000 a year to give seed funding. So he gets $5,000. He buys him a little setup to go to conferences and do stuff. He gets into the top 5 of the Incubator National Championship. We go up to Chicago, and I want you to understand that he at first was a lot like any coder, stereotypical coder. He was very introverted. He didn't want to talk, all that. Now he's an animal. Now you can't get him to be quiet at all. He's worse than me, and he's an animal on stage. He gets up on that stage, and in the first 30 seconds, I look at our team. I was like, he just won this competition. I mean, he just owned it. So he won $13,000. They kind of piecemealed the entire 25 out to that group that year. That was 2 years ago. And now he's got 12,000 users worldwide, Danny. And we've got people that are looking at him like he almost apologetically has to say he's not going to college because he's got a product that's making money. And I'm like, dude, you don't have to apologize to anybody.
Yeah, do your thing.
So, you what?
I said, do your thing, young man, right? That's what college, there's a social aspect, but you could figure that piece out too. But there's so many young people, and again, connecting the dots with being powered by AI and, just trying to figure stuff out. You can do that. You can do that today, so why not?
And then you fast forward to this year. And I was thinking the whole time, I was like, man, how are we ever going to top Anthony? And then enter the picture is Abigail Goddard. And Abby created
Is she the Spiky that you showed me?
Yes. She has a spiked drink detection keychain that you dip your finger in a drink, put it on the test strip. 15 seconds later, tells you whether your drink is safe to drink or not. She's working with a lab at the UK. At 15 years old, she started this process at the EIC. She was signing NDAs with people at 16. She had her first official mentor. We have 150 mentors built into our Entrepreneur Center that come in once a month. Clay Banks is our number one guy. He got Anthony across the finish line, Markify. So naturally we went, Clay, here you go. Here's your next. Clay starts working with them. They start looking at tariffs, oversee things, how we're going to get these fulfillments. She sells her first bulk order of these at 800 to AOPI International. We get her in the competition. She wins our Shark Tank. She wins a pitch contest in Vermont for $13,000. She wins the Diamond Challenge virtual out of California. She's won $30,000 in pitch funds alone, and she sold $40,000 in products. So she gets up to Chicago about a month ago. She gets on stage, and this time, nothing against Anthony, the competition was stiff. I was nervous the whole time, and it wasn't. According to what they're telling me, it was not close. It was closer in my mind than I thought it was. But she came out, won 17 grand. She's now going to do injection molding and she can spit 500 of these things out in an hour instead of 3 days. So it is she can't keep inventory. She sells out everywhere she goes. My job right now really has turned into business development. So I'm going to work with the Downtown Bar Association in Nashville, which is the #1 destination for all bridesmaid party in the world.
Oh
So
yeah.
if we can get some kiosks down there from a female entrepreneur at 16 years old, the rest is history. She's going to be our first millionaire, and there's no bones about it.
She should JV too with, I see all those bridesmaids with the pedal.
Yeah, the pedal
I don't,
taverns.
I don't know what they're called,
Yes.
but I mean that there's like your super consumer, your target market right there, and
Yep.
just to keep them safe. So have a good time and be responsible and that kind of thing. You don't have to worry about these weirdos that are out there. So
Yep.
awesome. Yeah, these I mean, how can you not listen to these stories and be fired up, right? And this is what I mean when I say let's reimagine education, even within a traditional system, so that we create. This is really important to listen to the words, so that we create a campus experience worth showing up for. I'm
100%.
guessing you don't have a lot of problems with attendance and discipline and all this kind of stuff, right? So I could be wrong, but you tell me.
No, I tell you what's actually happened. I tell anybody the most powerful thing in public ed that you can probably do is an athletics contest, honestly. Everybody's going to show up. Doesn't matter if you won a game or not, there's going to be 5,000 people show up. This is akin to athletics. I've never seen a more impactful program. I
Wow.
just
Okay.
haven't.
Yeah.
And when parents come in and daddies start sobbing, saying, I want you to know what a difference maker you guys have been. And I'm like, it's really not us. It's the program and the way that we operate. It is us collectively. It's not us taking the credit.
Mhm.
We really get out of the way of the kid and give the kid the support and opportunity and just let it work and fail forward, as we say. But when she has dentist appointments, doctor's appointments, she goes, that's fine, Mama, take me out of school as long as it doesn't interfere with my EIC time. Then you know you've arrived.
Yeah, right.
Now, prime example,
Don't bring me
we've
to
been
the
in-
dentist when I'm working on Spiky.
we've been in school 3 days as of this podcast right now. 3 days.
All right. All right.
The very first day we had a snafu with communication with our bus drivers because we have to go to all 10 schools and they come to us. A kid missed it, and a parent sent me a dissertation of an email saying, listen, I don't know what happened. Please don't hold it against them. They've got great ideas. It's like, hey, calm down. It's the first day of school. We just had a snafu. Nobody's going to hold it against them. But when you see that type stuff coming, it's super important, not only to the parent, but it's really important to the kid. And I'd hate to say they're not doing that for the English class.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
not.
So here's the thing. The majority of listeners, they have bought into the point of view that we talk about on the show, but they're still operating in the traditional system. And so the listener that's thinking it's the imposter syndrome right now, but they're saying, yeah, Danny, yeah, Jeremy, it's easy for you when it's literally called the Entrepreneurship and, Innovation Center. You got a little bit of funding and, support in the public and da, 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 da. But, I'm working in a traditional high school. What can you say to them? Or maybe what's like what can you say to them and what might be their first baby step, right? To bring some of this magic to campus.
Great question. So even though you're constrained by 4 corners, you're not constrained here, number one.
Mm.
And if you're like us and you're thinking like us and you want to be a difference maker, number one, and I tell everybody when I have an opportunity to speak, I was fortunate enough that I spoke at Frisco, Texas at a conference, and I was on a keynote panel, and they asked the exact same question. I said, the entrepreneurship was born because of an idea that we saw out of a single classroom. A teacher had taken it upon themselves to create an entrepreneurial space in a traditional classroom. What did they do? Well, they threw some whiteboard paint up on the wall to get ideas and let kids go up to that wall and share ideas and do wall shares. My point of that is, step number one is really study the entrepreneurial mindset and incorporate that entrepreneurial mindset into your classroom. And what does that look like? Well, if you're a senior English teacher, how do you write corporate memos? How do entrepreneurs do business plans? When you're doing writing assignments, make it real. Make them come up with a problem solution statement that could potentially be real and just start mimicking what they would do in real life. That's just a simple exercise. You start breaking down what you do every single day and say, how can I infuse an entrepreneurial mindset in this? Because entrepreneurial mindset is flexible, has to pivot when things don't go well,
Here.
and
You want to
do it
fail so you can learn and make it
right.
better.
And do what? And do it on a shoestring budget, even if you have a budget.
Mhm.
So if you want to know the perfect story of how to be a great teacher, study an entrepreneur.
Hmm.
They created it in their garage. So can you. You just you gotta take the mindset of I did something great and repeat it 30 years in a row. That doesn't work anymore. It's a constant evolution. It's a constant change. As an example, we have 5 cohorts that come a day. We literally made change midstream between cohorts because we realized the first cohort didn't go well because what we had planned.
Mhm.
I mean, you can get that granular and still get that experience. Another thing that we do very well is we bring in nonprofits in the empathetic process. We want our people to be empathetic in mindset. How can you help those that don't have? So we have, I don't know what the number's up to. It's probably triple digits of nonprofits. So we have micro internships baked in. So year 3 and 4 at the EIC, if a kid doesn't have, if you get caught in no man's land, they don't have a product, they're not doing well, they've pivoted 4 or 5 times. Hey, we plug them right into a micro internship, and they take the skills that they've learned, logistics, planning, creative calendars for creative content, all those things, and apply it to nonprofits. Go out, find you a nonprofit to work with, help them problem solve and use the skills that you're teaching in those classrooms towards that. And the kids will be telling, first off, any program, regardless, general ed, CTE, it doesn't matter, is made or broken by word of mouth by students. You can recruit all day long if they know that your class is boring and no fun, they ain't coming. But if Danny says, Jeremy, you've got to take that entrepreneurial class in there, they are crushing it. Here's what we got to do. I'll be the first to sign up.
That's right. When it comes to the EIC, is there anything else that you want to make sure the viewer or listener understands before we get to the last 3 questions?
Yeah, sure. You know, the Innovation Center, you mentioned that, it's coming fall this time next year. It's going to be more of a tradition, not traditional, but in the sense of what vocational learning used to look like 40 years ago with a new spin on it, right? We've got aviation so kids can get their private pilot license. We've got a hospitality and tourism program with a mock motel, a mock hotel room, mock hotel lobby, and a scratch kitchen where they can learn all the aspects of hotel management. We've got cybersecurity AI, we've got and some other programming. But what we're going to do is we're going to spin it on its head. We're going to teach those kids how to do entrepreneurship thinking processes so that they can go open their business if they choose to do so. So we're gonna weave in the entrepreneurial mindset in traditional vocational CTE programming, which a lot of people tell me it can't be done, but I'm like, okay, watch this.
Yeah, watch this.
So, yep,
That's what pirates and ruckus makers
that's
need,
what
is just a
pirates
little
do.
challenge.
That's right.
I'll never. I mean, listen, the podcast has been a great success. It's changed my life. It's opened many doors. But I had a dream of supporting ruckus makers who want to do school different in different type of, online learning, masterminds, one-on-one coaching, and this kind of stuff. And I'll never forget, Jeremy. I was in this like incubator, experience where business folks were just talking, pitching their idea, and getting feedback, that kind of thing. Pretty much live masterminding, actually. And I told this guy that, I'm gonna get school leaders from around the world to get together on a weekly basis and reimagine education. And this dude, yeah, that'll never work. That's what he told me. And I was like, okay, buddy, just watch this. Yeah, stay tuned, because I knew, like, a lot of times when it comes to entrepreneurship, you're solving your own pain point, just like Markify or Spiky, right? And for me, I wanted to grow. And as an assistant principal in a very large system, there just wasn't a lot of learning opportunities for me. APs weren't their priority, right? And so I figured, well, how am I going to get myself better? How am I going to get developed? And I created this. And so, that was 10 years ago, and I get to do it full time. I like to say that I have the best job in the world, right? So,
And the funny thing is, you can learn more in 30 minutes from somebody else than you could any kind of unbelievable professional development you have to sit through, right? I had a
yeah,
guy tell me once, he said, you know what PDs are? I said, what's that? He said, experts or somebody with a briefcase that comes from outside 30-mile radius. I just died laughing. I was like, you're right.
yeah. I hear you on that. Cool. Well, let's get to the questions that I ask all my guests at the end of the show. This has been a really
All right.
fun conversation for me. But Jeremy, if you could put a single message on all school marquees around the world for a single day, what would your message be?
Fail forward and fail often.
Right on. And let's say you're building your dream school and you didn't have any constraints in terms of finances or resources. Your only limitation was your ability to imagine. What would be the three guiding principles of building your dream school?
Collaboration. And what does that mean? That doesn't mean just student to student, student to teacher. You would make it a community driven style where mentors, business people, workforce development people would come and work alongside and do a trial and error style with those kids so that they would become employees. So collaboration would definitely be at one. Creativity. You got to foster creativity. I didn't hit my stride till late, Danny. Honestly, I went to a very small, poor school, rural school that didn't have a lot of opportunities to be creative. And I feel like it's taken me 25 years in public ed to kind of get comfortable enough to try to be creative. So collaboration, creativity. And then last would definitely, I'll go back to what I've been saying here is entrepreneurial minded. Obviously, it's got to be the heartbeat of everything we do. The kids in this generation want to work for themselves. They want to work at their own speed and they want to learn at their own speed. So that's when you say entrepreneurial driven, the education system would need to mimic that. So collaboration and creativity, and then that last step there of being able to do the things that are necessary to make it successful, which is that problem solving from an entrepreneurial mindset.
Right on. Well, hey, we covered a lot of ground today of everything we discussed. What's the one thing you want a ruckus maker to remember?
If my dad was former commissioner of education in the state of Tennessee, and he always told me, if you're going to err on the side of humans and not policy. So if you want to start building your pirate ship with your folks to build them to be pirates, there's going to come a crossing point at some point in time in your leadership skill set where a policy said one thing and they may have skirted it because it was what's right for the kid. Always err on the side of humans, not the side of policy.
Hey, ruckus makers, thanks again for pressing play. I hope you enjoyed the show as much as I enjoyed creating it for you. And before you go, if today's episode shifted something in you so that you want to do school different, or maybe you have a new idea about how to reimagine education on your campus, then check out My Principal Coach. It's your AI-powered leadership mentor. It's trained on 10 years of mastermind and private coaching experience that I've had. It's like having a world-class ruckus maker mentor in your pocket 24/7. You can start your free 7-day trial at myprincipalcoach.com.